Oh my God.
Please! We have to go!
I see it. I see it.
Please, ma'am, I'm begging you. The boy's voice cracked through the storm, his knees sinking into the mud. Rain drenched his suit, the photo trembling in his hands, a photo of her. Maya stared, frozen, her uniform still damp from her night shift. "Who are you?" she whispered. He looked up, eyes red, desperate. "I'm Richard Ward's son, and my father is dying." The name hit her like thunder. The man who destroyed her life, calling for her help. How could fate be this cruel? Or this poetic? This is the story of a broken past, asking for mercy. Comment your city below if this pulled you in. The rain had been falling for hours, washing the city's skyline in streaks of gray. In a crumbling corner of that same city, beneath flickering streetlights and rusted rooftops, lived Maya Thompson, a quiet nurse who rarely looked back. Her mornings began before sunrise. Her evenings ended long after dark, and between those hours, she carried more weight than anyone around her could see. At St. Luke's Community Clinic, she was known for her steady hands and calm voice, the kind that soothed both pain and pride. The children loved her. The old men on the block greeted her as Miss Maya with reverence. But behind her gentle smile lived a silence carved from betrayal, the kind that doesn't fade, only buries itself deeper. Years ago, she had trusted a man who promised her the world, a man whose name was whispered with power in every newspaper headline. But when lies turned to scandal, and scandal to ruin, she was the one left standing in the shadows while he walked away untouched. Since then, Maya had rebuilt her life piece by piece, far from the marble towers where that man still ruled as a billionaire. Tonight, as thunder echoed over the narrow streets, she sat by her window mending her uniform by candlelight. A storm warning played faintly on the old radio, but she barely noticed. She had weathered greater storms. Storms that didn't announce themselves with lightning but arrived quietly, disguised as trust. Outside, the world moved on without her. Unaware that somewhere across town, in a glass mansion miles above her small apartment, a man was fighting for his last breath. And miles away, his son, desperate, drenched, clutching a worn photograph, was about to knock on a stranger's door. Only she wasn't a stranger at all. Not to him, and certainly not to the dying man she once saved and lost everything for. The streets blurred beneath the pounding rain as Ethan Ward, son of billionaire Richard Ward, stumbled through the narrow lanes. His designer shoes were ruined, his breath ragged, his hands clutching a water-soaked photograph, the face of a woman he'd never met but could never forget hearing about. His father's voice, once powerful and unshakable, had whispered her name in his sleep for years. Maya. It was always the same, a name drenched in regret when the doctors said his father's condition was critical. Nothing could be done. Ethan searched the old archives, found hospital records his father had hidden, and discovered a name linked to a miracle, a nurse who had once saved Richard's life decades ago. But deeper in those files, he found the truth no child should ever have to learn. The same woman had been betrayed, silenced, and discarded by the man now begging for one more chance to live. The rain hit harder as he turned into a dim street where neon lights buzzed weakly. People stared. A man in an expensive coat didn't belong here. But Ethan didn't care. He followed the address scribbled on the back of the photo until he reached a small building with peeling paint and a single flickering bulb. He hesitated. His heart pounded. How do you ask forgiveness for someone else's sins? When Maya opened the door, she froze. The boy standing before her was young, trembling, soaked to the bone. But behind his eyes, she saw him. The same cold blue eyes that once smiled at her before turning away. "Maya Thompson?" His voice cracked. "Please, I need your help." "My father, he's dying." The words hit like thunder. For a long moment, she said nothing. Her mind flooded with memories, hospital corridors, secret meetings, promises that crumbled overnight. The man who ruined her name now lay helpless, and his son was begging her to save him. She turned away, gripping the door. "You have the wrong person." But Ethan didn't move. You saved his life once, he said softly. And mine, too. You just don't know it. Her hand trembled. That line. It broke through the wall she had built around herself. She turned back slowly, eyes narrowed. He explained everything. The accident years ago when he was a child, how an anonymous nurse at a charity ward had stopped the bleeding before paramedics arrived. He had been too young to remember her face, but his father had never forgotten, even if he pretended to. As he spoke, the storm outside grew wild. Water seeped through the roof, thunder rattled the walls, and Maya's breath came unevenly. "Why now?" she asked. "After all these years, why should I help him?" "Because," Ethan said, voice breaking, "he's dying calling your name. And if you don't come, he'll never get to say why." The clock ticked. The rain screamed against the window, and somewhere deep inside her, beyond the hurt, the bitterness, the scars, something shifted. She reached for her coat. Not because she had forgiven him, but because some lives are too heavy to leave unfinished. The hospital was colder than she remembered. White walls, polished floors, and the quiet hum of machines. All too clean, too sterile for the mess of memories flooding her chest. When Maya stepped through the automatic doors, heads turned. Some nurses whispered, recognizing the woman once dismissed in disgrace, the one who had been accused, then forgotten. Ethan walked beside her, his steps unsteady. They passed security, through corridors lined with portraits of donors, and there he was. Richard Ward, the billionaire whose name once opened every door, now lay frail and gray beneath a web of tubes. Maya stopped at the foot of the bed. Time folded in on itself. She could almost see him as he once was, powerful, charming, dangerous. His eyelids fluttered. Then slowly they opened. For a moment, silence filled the room, and then his lips moved. "Maya!" Her name escaped him like a prayer and a confession at once. Tears pooled at the corners of his eyes. He tried to speak, but his voice cracked. The monitors beeped erratically. She stepped closer, not as the woman he betrayed, but as the nurse she had always been. Steady, composed, human. Her hand touched his wrist, the pulse faint but alive. "You took everything from me," she whispered, her voice trembling. And still, "Here I am." His eyes met hers, full of something between guilt and gratitude. A tear slid down his cheek, and then the machine went still. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The rain had stopped by the time Maya stepped outside the hospital. The world felt quieter, as if the storm had taken something with it. Rage, maybe, or the years of unspoken hurt she'd carried alone. Ethan walked beside her, silent, clutching the photograph that had brought him to her door. Inside that building, a chapter had finally closed, not neatly, not cleanly, but completely. Richard Ward was gone. And with him went the lies, the weight, the injustice that had once shattered her life. Yet, standing beneath the dim glow of the parking lot lights, Maya realized forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. It meant choosing peace over pain. Not for the man who wronged her, but for the woman she refused to stop being. Ethan turned to her, eyes red from grief and shame. He wanted to say he was sorry, he murmured. Maya nodded slowly. "Some words come too late," she said, but at least they came. In that moment, two worlds that were never meant to meet, privilege and struggle, wealth and worth, stood side by side. She saw in him what his father had never understood. That redemption isn't inherited, it's earned. As she walked away, the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, glinting off the puddles at her feet. Somewhere the city stirred awake, unaware of the quiet act of grace that had just rewritten two lives. How many apologies come too late, and how many hearts never get the chance to hear them? Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories that move hearts and open eyes.